Miigwech.
Pujuin tinawimagkanadug, Ogimaakwe Stone, April Stone Shaganashi Winakazo, Makwan and Dudame. Nina Nimidana Shinano Bibunagez Mina Waniwi Waknanijana Sug, Gashagaga Wanchagong and Dunjaba Mashkisi Binginda, Nimba Paki Maki Makakoke. My husband, when I was married, he wove a basket of black ash. The basket saw hard use, and finally a lashing around the rim gave way. And it was in that moment that I realized the strength of the material, what it could do, and how well it held up in all 4 seasons. So after that lashing broke, something turned on in my brain, and I needed him to show me how to make a basket. So in the spring of 1999, he showed me how to weave my first basket. I believe that baskets tell stories. No 2 baskets are the same. Baskets, when I look at them, I can learn a lot about how they were put together, why they might have been made, maybe what they were made for, maybe the material they were made out of. I can learn a lot about the maker and the maker's mindset, even if this basket was made 300 years ago. Making baskets makes me feel very connected to my ancestors here at Bad River and to ancestors universally. Knowing that my ancestors here worked with cedar and basswood and cattail and ash and roots makes me feel like I'm very, very much a part of the past and trying to bring that now into the present. I learned how to harvest some of these materials just through trial and error. There was nobody to show me how to do many of these things. What I have are stories from our elders, most of whom are, some are not here anymore. Joe Rose Sr., he was one of my teachers, one of my mentors, and he was the first one probably that told me that he had a couple of baskets in his private collection that were given to him by his grandmother. Another fella, Hawk Connors, the late Hawk Connors, and he said that he had a basket that was about 1.5 feet tall, maybe 2 feet tall, black ash with a lid, and that housed his feather headdress that was passed down to him from his father, from his grandfather. And stories from Francis Manny LeGroux, who says that he pounded a log when he was about 15 years old, and it was the hardest work he ever had to do, and he never ever wanted to do it again. And he remembers pounding that log for his aunties. There's another elder, Ethel Plasinski. I worked with her for many months, and she had a basket in her house that was sitting on her shelf, and she let me pull it down and explore the basket. After I made that first black ash basket, I wanted to make more and more and more, and I searched for people to show me how to do that, but nobody was really doing that I could find. So I, again, tried to read books, tried to go to the library, tried to talk to people, searched people out on reservations, off reservations. It didn't matter to me. I was just trying to learn the process. When I made my first basket, I was outside all day long. I wove this vessel that I was very proud of. When I wove it, I felt so empowered. And I didn't quite understand why I felt empowered by making that one thing when I had made lots of other things before that. So I think it was the combination of the tools, the material, where the material came from, what could be done with it, how to manipulate it with what I saw in my mind as a functional basket that I wanted to make. I can't say for sure why it was such an empowering experience, but it was, and I liked how that felt, and I wanted to continue that work. Sometimes when I'm out harvesting in the forest, no matter what ecosystem I'm standing in, whether it's by a wetland or by a marsh or by the lake or on a beach or in a hardwood forest, I feel that I am really just communing with the living beings that are there. The plants, flowers, the trees, shrubs, animals, but even the sky and the clouds and the water, because harvest is really weather dependent. When I'm out in the forest, I think about how peaceful it is, how quiet it is, really how our ancestors might have lived a long time ago, knowing that there is so much more that they knew that I don't know, that I still have to learn. And knowing that I don't think I could ever be where they were at. But just knowing that they had a deep appreciation and a deep connection. It was all related through the land, through the language. When you find that tree that you're looking for, you put your offering of tobacco down, you say your prayer, you give your thanks, because you are literally taking the life of a living being. This is your relative, and this is a big deal. So I go into the forest knowing what I'm about to do, and that there's a lot of work involved in harvesting and processing, mostly processing of that raw material into working parts. When I happen upon a cedar, I will look for a nice large diameter cedar. When I see a cedar tree, it kind of reminds me of how the DNA is inside of our bodies and how it kind of moves up in a chain and kind of twists around the trunk itself. So I try to find a cedar that doesn't have a lot of that, if possible. I'm not trying to take the bark from a living being necessarily. So sometimes I am at the mercy of whatever the cedar will yield for me. But when I harvest basswood, I'm looking for smaller diameter trees, ones that are probably going to be removed from the location that I am standing in, maybe close to power lines or right-of-ways or driveways or infrastructure. I'm going to, score that bark near the base or the base of the tree itself and peel upwards. So that piece that I'm removing is going to be probably 25 feet in length, which is pretty long. And I start with a wide strip because I know the tree tapers to a narrow diameter near the top. So I know that what I start with at the beginning, at the base, is going to be much narrower as I go up. And then place the inner bark attached to the outer bark. I'll remove the outer bark, coil up the inner bark, and place that into Potato River, kind of stake it into Potato River, further process that material. So basswood would be another choice material that I enjoy working with. The Ojibwe word for black ash is Ogimaakwe, and it means something like pounding, knocking, or beating wood. And so I imagine that word came about as a result of what it took, or the properties or characteristics of that particular being, and what materials were produced from that tree. When you're pounding the log, what's happening is the blows from your implement are sort of crushing the spring ring, allowing the summer ring to peel off the entire length of the log. In essence, when you're pounding a log, you're reversing the age of that log 1 year at a time. At least that's how I do it. Other people do it in different ways. It gets sorted based on its thickness, coiled up, and set to dry. When you're ready to make a basket, you retrieve the coils that you want to work with, submerge them in water because the material needs water to work, rehydrate, and further process that material based on the basket you're trying to make. Once your material is the thickness you want, then you proceed to cut it into your desired lengths and widths, lay out your base, weave your base together, upset the uprights by folding them, creasing them at the base so that the uprights now have a different direction, a different memory to follow, and then cut all your weavers to the desired widths that you want the weavers to be. There are lots of different styles of baskets that one can make. There's a continuous weave, there's twill weave, there's one round weave, there's chase weave, there's all kinds of things. So you got to figure out what you want to make first and prepare your material to those specifications, and then weave the basket. Once it's dry, I pack it down, I level it, I put a false rim on, I put an inner rim, outer rim, tuck my uprights, make my cordage from the basswood to put in between the rim system. If there's a handle going to be put onto the basket, that's a whole different thing. That's taking your ash log, wedging it down its middle, wedging it again, getting your working parts, your wooden working parts, taking that to the draw knife and shave horse and shaving it down to your desired lengths and widths and bending it. So now you're doing some greenwood bending or some steam wood bending and notching it and putting it into the basket and then lashing the rim system together and calling it done. Being introduced to this artist in residence program, through the tribe, I thought, I'm going to apply for that. This is right up my alley. I feel like there was just this sense of honing in on what did I need? What was I working on? It all was just right in line with the points of this residency. And to know that I could drive somewhere and harvest black spruce root from a bog for the first time, and that was my job. And then I could work with that natural material in ways that I've always wanted to work with. I love that that was my job and that I got paid to do that. For me, it was in nurturing myself in a way where I could connect with materials, sometimes for the first time, learn about them, learn how they worked, and then share that information with my community. That just really felt full circle to me. I was able to make this replica of a corded basswood bag that was twined, learn more about the qualities of the basswood that I used, proportions and ratios, lengths, things like that, to create this old style basswood bag that our people used to make. And that was like a highlight of my time. It took a long time to do that project, 80 to 100 hours. I've been wanting to make a bag like that for probably 20 years. And now I was able to do that in a way that I felt not rushed, in a way that I felt supported, in a way that I felt I learned a lot about what I would do differently for this next bag that I'm doing. By doing this work, I am able to sort of revive something that was set aside and not practiced. I think about that with language, with culture, with ceremony. And I think that there was a time where all of those things had to be put away. And then there was a time when all of those things got to be brought back out again. We've seen revival with language and ceremony and culture. One thing I want to see a revival in is how we worked with our hands, how we understood the trees and the plants and the roots, and how we knew when to harvest them, and how we knew what qualities and characteristics they held, they provided for us, how to process those materials and make those shelters, make those mats, make those baskets, those vessels that were made in previous times. What I enjoy most about teaching people here in my community is that I feel like I'm helping them to connect with the past. I'm helping them to connect with a lifestyle that we all used to have, our ancestors used to have. So I feel like when I'm working with people in my own community, I am helping them to reconnect with that life way, that mindset, those ideas, their ancestors, from our place, from this place. For young people, they may not have been exposed to it yet. It is something new. It's something that they can do with their hands. It's not looking at a screen. It's an easy starting point. It sort of sets the experience, which then creates the memory. So now when they move forward, they will always have the memory of that experience. And they can remember then how that felt for them. And they know that they now have that knowledge and they can expand on it in different ways. When I'm working on baskets, when I'm sitting around weaving baskets, I think about just a strong connection to the traditional teachings. I think a lot about the traditional teachings that reveal themselves during the process of basket making. If everybody could sit and make baskets, maybe we all could understand and tap into those or connect with those traditional teachings. It could help us understand as a people how to move forward better. I take great honor and pleasure in doing this work, knowing that the knowledge that I have been able to revive or learn so that I can share with others ensures that there will be a connection for future generations to the landscape, because this is what we have, this is where our resources are coming from, is our land. This is where we live. And it's very important to me to know that the upcoming generations will know that there was this person, this woman who was so attached to this work and wanted so badly to make sure to sort of reclaim it, relearn about it, to share with others so that they too can have that connection. They can take part in that connection as they move forward into the future.